Mr. Wreck the Regime. He's from Pennsylvania. Everyone give a round of applause for Dr. Michael Rectenwald, everybody.
Hello, good evening. My name is Michael Rectenwald, and I'm running for president as a libertarian. So, what is the vision of my campaign, and what is the vision of the Libertarian Party today? Right now, the Libertarian Party stands at a precipice because the nation stands at a precipice. Are we going to increase liberty or not? Are we going to take over our local government and control our power from the ground up or not? Are we going to keep playing politics and pretending that we will win elections at the national level as president or even Congress in the Senate? Or are we going to build something from the ground up? My campaign is premised on the idea of expanding liberty. It is very consistent with the founding principles of the Libertarian Party as outlined by David Nolan at its founding. He said, "It is not a goal of the party to get on the ballot or to win votes or to gain different concessions from the regime. The goal of the party is to increase liberty, and that means getting liberty into the lives of people and wresting it away from the central government." So my campaign does not have any pretensions of winning the national election. So why am I running then? I'm running not a campaign, but a movement. And this movement is aimed at increasing liberty on the ground, decentralization, decentralized revolution, wresting power from the federal government at the state and local level, investing it in the people on the ground. That is to say, what we must do is, first, we must increase liberty by changing the culture, by educating the public, and by increasing our reach to the people outside of the Libertarian Party itself. Now, how does that happen? We need a leader who can reach people that are well beyond the libertarian circles. I have been an pundit and an analyst and an author. I've written 12 books. I've been on all kinds of shows like Tucker Carlson, like Glenn Beck, and all these types of programs. So what I have to offer is recognition well beyond the confines of the Libertarian Party, and then to bring in people from outside. This means that, yes, we have to convert people to libertarianism. That means we have to understand where they're coming from right now. Whether they're leftists or far right or whatever they want to call them, we need to explain our principles to these people and get them converted to our side. So what I mean by that is I myself was converted to libertarianism. I was converted through a process of being targeted for cancel culture by the far left. And what they did is they tried to ruin my academic career. I was a professor at NYU for 11 years, and around the 8th year, they began, when I started to criticize things that were happening on campus, I was attacked roundly by the social justice warriors on campus. I was slammed by the administration, coerced into a leave of absence, and then condemned by the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion group. And what this did to me was it woke me up entirely. And there are many disaffected people that are on the fence right now that have been experiencing a similar phenomenon, the cancel culture. And it's coming now from not only the left, but the right. I'll talk about that in a second. But what I'm trying to say is there are plenty of people that we can reach who are fed up, but we first have to have a message and a messenger. That means somebody that understands where they're coming from. What are their premises? What do they believe to be true? Why do they support the welfare state? Why do they support the warfare state? What are their aims? And so I believe, since I have been on the other side, I was a far leftist. There's no secret about that. I'm not hiding a thing. That gives me a distinct advantage to speak to these people, both from the left and right. And frankly, I'm fed up with both sides completely when we see now that the so-called anti-war right has suddenly been folded back into the neocon camp thanks to conflict in Israel. So who's going to speak to them? And who's going to speak to the anti-war left that is against the war in Israel but gung-ho on the war in Ukraine? These are the issues that we need to speak to and apply our principles to. We need to see what people's issues are, what is at stake for them in their lives, and we need to be able to get the principles to them through a message. So, I have been endorsed by major figures in the liberty movement, including Walter Block, Jeff Deist, former president of the Mises Institute, Dave Smith, of course, and just recently Judge Napolitano, and many others, because they know that I have recognition outside of this party. They know that I can speak to a broad public, and I have. I've been spreading the liberty message through books and interviews and talks all over the country for years. So that's what I'm saying. What we need to do is get somebody out there that can reach beyond the party limits and can speak to people from where they are and bring them into the liberty movement and bring them into liberty at large. We need to broaden liberty on the ground, build a movement, educate the public, and finally, gain power at the local level. Then we can begin to take on higher levers of the state. We are not going to have a white knight who rides into Washington and suddenly from the top down dismantles the state. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. When I say wreck the regime, this is not me wrecking the regime. This is you wrecking the regime. We need to do that together at the local level. Run for office. Get involved at the local level. Get the power away from the central government and vest it in yourselves. Thank you very much.
Everyone give a hand for Mike. Dr. Rectenwald, can you take a seat up here? Thank you. He used to live in Florida. He's now in Virginia. Homecoming welcome for Mike Zermatt, everybody. Thank you.
On 9/11/2001, a lot changed in the United States, and your government, what we used to call the American government, the government of the United States, used what happened as a pretext to lie to you and to launch a war in Iraq, to launch a war in Afghanistan. They chose not to be honest with you about the motivation or what was happening, and it cost well over 1 million lives in your name. Let's not talk about the billions of dollars lost. Today, we have a president in the White House who has said that he is ready to go to war with China if the People's Republic decides to try to unify Taiwan, only because the United States government wants to be able to project its own military hegemony in the China Sea, and because it has followed an absolutely moronic policy of strategic ambiguity for now 3 generations, inviting people to invest in Taiwan with the pretext, you'll always be safe there. You can count on us to back you up if there's a war. If the reason that you're investing in Taiwan is because you need to be backed up, maybe I can interest you in Ocala, a great place to live and invest. And that is a place that we should back up. The next thing that went wrong, of course, is the United States and a bunch of our allies in Europe backed Russia into a corner and it invaded Ukraine, and we have now blown $150 billion protecting a nation that is not in our strategic interest. And again, your U.S. government has decided to lie to you about this. Today, the President of the United States is returning from Israel, a nation to whom we have given billions of dollars a year and over whose government we have influence that amounts to a grand total of zero. We have given billions of dollars per year to the aggregation of the PLO, Hamas, Hezbollah, Jordan, Egypt, and the nation of Lebanon, which is probably the strangest of all on that list. Our influence in the region has fallen so far that the Arab nations and their leaders are now embarrassed to meet with the President of the United States, who had to return home without getting the meetings that he had asked for. This is the government that has instituted a foreign policy in your name that has wreaked havoc around the world. We are now poised on the edge of yet another American intervention that could easily drag us into World War III. My greatest fear is that by the time it happens, it'll be World War V, because we could have one in the China Sea and in Eastern Europe before it happens in the Middle East. The stakes could not be higher. Don't ever forget why it is that we're here. To say the obvious, this campaign is not about me. And just for a moment, they're wonderful. It's not about them either. And they are wonderful, and it's not about them. To be honest, it's not even about the rest of us in this room. It is about people around the world, and especially people inside the United States, whom we call brothers and sisters, for no other damn good reason than the fact that they are fellow Americans. People who are, among us, the least able to stand up to the power of the federal government, the state government, the local government. We have created such a weird web of laws that it's very difficult. You all put your finger on something real important about the family falling apart. It's harder today to hold your family together because of our weird welfare system, our war on drugs, and what I would argue as a former cop is the world's most oppressive criminal justice system layered on top of it. If you're waiting for a Republican to lead the charge back toward the Constitution, to lead toward liberty in a way that allows people to live their lives by their own standard, you are waiting for something that is not going to happen. If you're waiting for a Democrat to stand up for your First Amendment rights, your Second Amendment rights, don't snicker, your Fourth, Fifth, or Sixth Amendment rights, about which I spend a lot of time talking about as someone from law enforcement, if you're waiting for a Democrat to figure out how to spell the 10th Amendment, you're waiting for something that's not going to happen. This is to say that we not only have a giant opportunity in 2024, but this is our call of duty. This is our obligation. It's no longer even conceivable to imagine another party pulling us out of the fire in the United States. Look around the room. There aren't very many people here. Wonderful people. Multiply that by every state in the union, you still don't get to a big number. It's time to pick up a shovel, and not the kind of shovel with which you can dig a ditch, the kind of shovel that you can wield like a weapon. The shovel that my wife Nancy and I have picked up, Nancy is here, I just want to give her a big shout out. It's the only reason I get into some of these places, to be honest. She's put up with a lot, and she does it because she knows it's not about me. It's about something very much larger. As libertarians, we are the philosophical descendants of the people that put together the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, that put our government together for only one legitimate reason. And that is to protect your liberty, our individual rights. There's no other reason anybody sails across the North Atlantic in the 18th century. Don't kid yourself. We are here for a much larger purpose than to make ourselves feel good. The kind of campaign that we're putting together reflects this sense of urgency. We have 15 people on our team that we pay already today. No, we're not ready for the other side of the nomination quite yet. We have another dozen people that are unpaid advisors. We have a bunch of volunteers on top of that. The team is getting bigger. We will be ready by the time the nomination process actually unfolds. The reason I'm in the campaign is because I believe that we need to build the style of campaign that's going to represent this party and lead us to a sense of victory. We are in it to win it. Winning may mean different things to different people. But I got to be honest right now, it does not mean 5%. It means disrupting the duopoly. It means changing American politics. It means forcing the other parties to take into consideration our values. This is what it is that we're fighting for. If you're a registered Democrat and you join that party out of some sense of anti-war, fill in the blank, you joined that party because you didn't want to be censored and you wanted someone to stand up for your rights. You wanted to live your life by your own standards. You and your party have gone in two different directions. If you join the Republican Party out of some sense of fiscal conservatism, your party left you behind a long time ago. Your values better align with ours. They better align with our party, with our campaign, with our philosophy. Our job is to remind people that they need to stop wasting their vote and vote for their values. Thanks a lot.
Mike Tremont, everybody.
Okay. Hezbollah's smart. I think what he's getting at there, Trump, is that if he were in office or he was still in office, that he would be outsmarting Hezbollah and that he would be squelching these terrorists and so forth. So we're looking at the same narrative that we saw in the Iraqi war. You're either with us or you're with the terrorists. And this is the kind of narrative that they're trying to push. And what is Trump saying is that he could have kept Hezbollah and Hamas and all these terrorist organizations under control and that they never would have done this and that. And here's the thing. It is not like Hamas. The history of Israel began in on October 7th, 2023. There's a long history there, including Israel's funding of Hamas. It's establishing of Hamas as the first place. They put them in power in order to try to create a split between Gaza and the West Bank. And what they wanted to do was create a fission so they could divide and conquer, but also they wanted a militant terrorist opposition because they were looking for a way to keep Palestine from becoming a state. It would have no legitimacy if it was led by Hamas, and that's one of the reasons that they did it. So what we're getting at here is that Trump's no savior, and certainly he had his share of bombing different countries and people and assassination attempts and so forth. We're the only party, and I will stand as a principled anti-war candidate all the way through. No arming of Israel, no arming of Ukraine, no military aid, no intelligence operations, none of it. It's all out of the question. What have we done with our military might? What have we done with this military funding of these countries? We've created and exacerbated the very conflicts that we then step in to try to solve. We did that in Russia, in Ukraine, and Russia moving more and more NATO allies onto the border, basically taunting and keeping Russia constantly being threatened. And so, yeah, it's time for a change. Thank you.
Thank you.
355 ships is about 346 too many, to be honest with you. Look, the defense spending of the United States is insane. The United States government has set as an objective being able to fight 2 world wars at the same time and win them both. I'm going to say that's setting the bar a little high. He did get one thing right before I fell asleep. I noticed he said that the number one priority of the U.S. government is to keep us safe. I'm going to go with it's the only thing that we should be asking of the federal government is to keep us safe. That's it. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. I would love to live in a world in which it could do a second thing, which is a more muscular defense of our individual liberties, standing up for us when our states violate our rights. But that's asking way too much. We need to pare down the federal government all the way down to doing only that. By the way, he also, I was waking up there at the end, he mentioned one more thing as sort of an excuse to give him a pathway into what he had been already talking about. He talked about China, and he had the crisscross lines going there. Thou shalt not be afraid of the Chinese military. The Chinese military is fostered by the Chinese economy, which is, mark my words, I know I've been talking about this for 15 years, and at some point you're going to stop listening to me. The Chinese economy is going to tank, and it's going to tank in a very, very profound way. Our biggest concern about the Chinese military should be that when the Chinese economy tanks, they get frustrated and they lash out because they want to exert their power. But in the long run, we do not have to worry about going to war with China as long as we keep the Biden administration from causing it in the first place. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, DeSantis was claiming, of course, that he was the open state and that, there wasn't the muzzling going on here. You all know better. But let's talk about how we might have prevented what took place during COVID. What could have prevented the kind of lockdowns and masking and social distancing, the masking of children, and the closure of schools would have been if we had control of the schools at the local level. There were several communities that did resist even their state's mandates. They were able to put a halt at those mandates at the borders of their towns. This is the only way that we're going to resist both federal and state hegemonic power. We must take control of local governments, and then we will have freedom, at least in our regions. This then has to spread beyond the localities into other localities. So the COVID crisis, and the other thing I would say about the COVID crisis is the way that the state enrolled people into its own structures and made them kind of like state agents. You probably saw the people telling you, get your mask on, don't do this, stand 6 feet away from me. This is how the state operates. It is not simply this discrete entity that you can point at and say, there's the state. No, the state, it enlists people into its body and gets them to do the state's functions. This is what we need to stop. So it happened with on social media. It happened when our peers or people around us telling us to do this and that. So this is why we need to do cultural change as well as political change. We need to get the idea of liberty out to more people and to talk about the principles to a broader audience. It's not enough to even win little elections. We must do a cultural revolution here as well. Thank you.
Except for New Jersey Public Schools, that's exactly right. His attitude is obviously 100% straight on. Governor DeSantis is a weird example of a guy who every 4 years he thinks he's a libertarian. He's the guy who says, I hate it when Donald Trump violates the Constitution. I get to violate the Constitution in my state, right? That's what he's all about. Obviously, Governor Christie has the right attitude. We want families to be making decisions for their children, whether it's education, medical treatment, anything. That's what we're all about. And we have noticed over and over again, the government, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you've got your special little axe to grind. Republicans and Democrats are using the government to impose certain social views, right, on limitations on what families should be allowed to do. Couple of limiting principles, and this is important. Number one, the government has to stay out of subsidizing whatever decision you make. Saying that the family is responsible is not the same thing as saying, whatever you decide, we're going to throw you a few large to help you out. That's not what we're talking about, right? When he says you're responsible, that means you're responsible for the outcome, but it also means you're responsible for the fiscal element, okay? Number two, limiting principle. Decisions are going to last the rest of your life. You have to be ready to be able to make that decision, okay? You need to be able to participate in that decision. That means that you have to be of a sufficiently adult frame of reference to be able to decide, what is it I'm about to do? What are the alternatives? What are the implications? What could go wrong? What do the data say? Is my doctor an idiot? Is my second doctor an idiot? Am I doing this because people at school think it's a good idea? What's the last stupid thing that I did? If you can't remember, you're not adult enough to make this decision. So as a basic limiting principle, it's okay for us to say as a society, there's going to have to be some hurdle that you have to clear, okay? Just like you have to clear a hurdle before we say sexual activity, right? We all say as a society, we're drawing the line at an age of consent for you to do certain things. If you're going to make decisions that's going to affect you the rest of your life, you're going to have to demonstrate that you've cleared some hurdle for age of consent and you're enough of an adult to participate in that conversation. Ciao.
Dr. Michael Rectenwald, everyone. Clap for Mr. Rectenwald.
Thank you so much, Libertarian Party of Duval County, and I appreciate having me here. I just want to reiterate what the vision that I have for the party and the movement that I am the tip of the spear of, and that is the decentralized revolution movement. We are here to bring about not some white knight coming into Washington or winning the nomination in order to sort of get their name on the ballot and so forth. I'm talking about leaving a lasting legacy of liberty on the ground. That is what my campaign is about. It is not about me. I was drafted to do this. It wasn't my idea to be a candidate. But when I understood the vision that was laid out for me, I fully embraced it. I would ask you to go to rectheregime.com. That's REC, theregime.com. Thank you.
The reason I believe that you want to go to goldnewdeal.org is not just because it's a platform with a goofy name. We're obviously making fun a little bit of Franklin Roosevelt's original New Deal. We believe that we need a brand new relationship between us and the government. The other reason I really want you to go to goldnewdeal.org, the big reason, is because it's our promise to lead a campaign, principles forward, based on the most transformational ideas, without an ability to back up. This is our commitment. This is our promise. On the other side of the nomination, we don't have an opportunity to back up. Our platform already has a life of its own. It's got its own URL and its own branding and its own silly name. We can't back up on it. We have no intention to. Here's why. We believe that the right strategy for gaining as much attention in this race is exactly the same as the right strategy for correctly branding the Libertarian Party. It's something that our party has not done very well in the past cycles. It's something that I believe that we need to be good at to take advantage of the huge opportunity that we have in 2024. So this is a campaign designed from the ground up to completely differentiate from the Democratic Party, completely differentiate from the Republican Party, and leave absolutely no question that there's a new sheriff in town with values that reflect yours. Stop wasting your vote. Thanks a lot.